Well, questions were raised last week when Wells Fargo CFO Howard Atkins abruptly left the firm. Mr. Atkins cited, quote, personal reasons for his departure, and the bank has not given really any further details. Investors have been rather skeptical, and the stock, by the way, it's been down since the announcement. And now Wells Fargo has been downgraded from neutral to negative by analyst Chris Whalen of Institutional Risk Analytics. Chris joins us now on the phone. Chris, great to have you back with Matt and myself. I want to read something that you're saying about the company. You say the departure of Atkins, we are led to believe, was not merely the result of personal issues, but reflects an ongoing internal dispute within Wells Fargo's executive suite regarding the bank's disclosure. That's worrisome. What specifically do you think the bank is not revealing here?
Well, for the past couple of years, Wells has taken a very hard-nosed approach to disclosure, both generally and in their dealings with the analyst community. And the thing that really set me off, I've had a neutral on them for a couple of years, by the way. And the thing that set me off really was the departure of Atkins. I don't care why he left. But when the CFO of a bank holding company walks out the door in the middle of February, before their SEC attestation for SOX, and also before they file their attestation and disclosure with federal bank regulators, that's a big problem. Forget anything else I wrote in the note. Just that fact alone begs the question. And I think Wells Fargo has to tell us what's going on. Bottom line. They could solve this issue very quickly. Just tell us why this man cannot finish his work for 2010 and sign off on all three of those attestations, because that's a big deal.
Couldn't it be, though, Chris, just for regular human reasons? I mean, we've all had moments in our lives when we wanted to just drop everything, maybe not for professional reasons.
Well, we all probably feel that way now, but look, no. You got to understand, when you're an officer and the director of a bank, you are under even more heavy onus than just as a public company. All of the Sarbanes-Oxley normative standards for officers and directors come from the banking world, which are much more severe. So this is a big deal. And like I say, the SEC disclosure is important to our community, to investors. But really, the bank regulators have a problem now because this man walks out the door with no notice. If he was going to retire, he could have done that 2 months ago.
Hey, Chris, you were kind enough to share your report with us. You also write, we further understand that some officials of Wells Fargo, increasingly uncomfortable with the bank's aggressive public disclosure regime, have reached out to regulators because of concerns regarding these accounting issues. I'm just curious, who are you talking to at Wells Fargo? I mean, are people pretty much coming forward and
talking to you? Where are you getting this?
Well, we have our sources the way you have yours. We're not a broker-dealer. All right? We are a journalistic organization just like Bloomberg. All right? So I stand by our report. What I have to say is in the report. But all I can tell you is that there is constant discussion of both Wells and BA disclosure. And that's really the important thing in my note. I think that they're understating their losses. And as a result, they've been able to not only improve their earnings, but they've been pulling reserves out of loss provisions to goose their earnings and hit the analyst targets, which I think is unconscionable. I think these organizations should be looked at very hard by federal regulators to see if they're not hiding losses in areas like troubled debt restructuring and in modification. Well, if you're late on your loan and they contact you, the servicer, and say, look, give us a payment and we'll put you in our modification program, that loan disappears.
Well, and Chris,
and it's still on accrual. They may not get another payment from that customer, but it'll sit in a modification bucket for 6 months, and it's still on accrual.
What do you think is then, Chris, the real picture at Wells Fargo?
Look, I think they're under the same pressure as Bank America. If I were to put them in order, I would start with Wells as greatest concern, then Bank America, then JP Morgan, and then Citi, ironically, who I've now got a neutral on. I've got a neutral on Citi and JP forward operating results, and I've got a negative on Bank America and Wells. And frankly, I've been thinking about Wells for 6 months. The Atkins departure was just a catalyst, and I was uncomfortable with them at a neutral. Because, another point, they've told us that they're not going to settle with Fannie Mae.
Chris,
they're going to fight it out loan by loan. I don't think that's a positive development.
Let me just ask you quickly, because I know you speak with senior federal regulators. What do they say when you talk to them about this?
Well, I don't talk to federal bank regulators about any of this, and I don't want you to give the impression that I do.
You don't?
But are you?
No, of course not. And they can't talk to the public. Look, I worked at the Fed in New York. I worked in the bank supervision function. I would never put my colleagues on the spot by asking them about a specific institution. That's wrong. They never talk about an institution unless it's closed publicly. Okay?
Got it.
And that goes to friends and colleagues in the risk community.
Got it. All right. Hey, Chris, well, we enjoy having you on. Thanks so much for joining us. Chris Whalen there from Institutional Risk Analytics. He is a managing director there.